The spirit of compromise weakened among heads of state, Radiker says. Don't expect any sweeping new initiatives. I'm Rowan Moore-Garrity for Marketplace.
Checking numbers. The key stock index in Shanghai fell 0.25%, and in Japan, the Nikkei closed right where it began. The FT100 index is up 0.2%. The Dow rose 96 points yesterday, 0.2%. Stock index futures in the U.S. are mixed at the moment, though. Less than 2 weeks after a software snafu shut the whole NASDAQ for 2 hours, executives at the electronic market were holding a follow-up meeting yesterday, right as the NASDAQ ran into another technical problem, failing to transmit the prices of a bunch of stocks, this time for 6 long minutes. In Mexico this week, a victory for the country's president and a major setback for the striking teachers union there. The Mexican Senate has now approved a package of changes to schools. Teachers are on strike and demonstrations have sometimes turned violent. Enrique Acevedo is a reporter and anchor with the Spanish-language broadcaster Univision. We check in with him regularly on Marketplace. Enrique, good morning.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. What are some of the changes that Mexican teachers would have to face?
I think the main component of this bill has to do with a merit-based system. Evaluation will be central in this new structure, and that's what has most of the teachers complaining about the new set of rules.
Merit-based promotion, these competency exams. How does the system work presently?
Teachers right now basically own their positions. They're able to inherit those positions and even sell them. So we're looking to change that in Mexico. I think everybody agrees on that. One of the main criticisms on the other side is that this bill lacks a proper training program for the teachers in the long run. You need to provide these teachers with the tools necessary to reach their full potential, and I think training should have been a central component to the bill also.
Teachers and their union are deeply upset with these proposed changes. I understand tempers are running quite high, for instance, in Mexico City.
Yes, during the last couple of weeks, the teachers have protested by the thousands in the country's capital. They've blocked streets, and this disrupted everyday life for a city that's already very chaotic.
The president of Mexico links this reform with other reforms he's doing in the name of what? Fixing Mexico's economy?
I guess modernizing and making Mexico a more competitive economy. As multinationals increase their investment, the demand for well-educated young workers also increases. So education reform and energy reform of the financial system becomes a key component in helping the widest possible segment of the population enjoy the benefits of Mexico's favorable position in the global economy. You know, it's not newsy for the U.S. right now, but in the long run, it's very important for the U.S. economy.
Depending on how well workers are educated there and economic development in Mexico, it changes, for instance, the immigration picture, right?
Completely. If Mexico keeps doing well and if education reform goes through, that's good news for the U.S.
Enrique Acevedo, one of the stars of Univision News. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David.
Do you enjoy the music we play between stories? Visit the Marketplace music section to browse playlists for all of our programs and to buy those songs on Amazon. A percentage of each purchase goes towards supporting our programs. Find more online at marketplace.org/music.
If fashion is your thing, you already know that Fashion Week opens today here in New York City. Used up your vacation time before Labor Day and can't make it in person? Know that the runway action is also streamed online. That has prompted super designer Oscar de la Renta to cut down the guest list for his shows. Kate Archer-Kent has more on the social media angle here.
Fashion Week-related hashtags are flying like a blizzard in New York, and that could be the saving grace for Fashion Week. The traditional runway show may not be cost-effective for many designers who can't afford not to turn it into a branding event, according to Scott Galloway, a marketing professor at NYU's Stern School of Business.
I think brands have realized that and are trying to figure out a way to spread some of that fabulous across their customer base via social media.
Bloggers share front row seats now with fashion editors and celebrities. But that 4-minute runway show can't be replaced, says Isla Mel, the author of the book New York Fashion Week.
You really don't get the best sense unless you're there in person to see the clothes, see how they move.
Galloway says small and medium-sized designers may look at the financial cost and decide it's best to ignore Fashion Week altogether and focus on their core business. That discussion of who snubbed it might just be trending on social media. I'm Kate Archer-Kent for Marketplace.
And you know, sometimes in the fancy coffee aisle, there are two grinders, one for regular beans, the second for flavored, so there's no cross-contamination of the taste. With that in mind, there's this. Campbell Soup is working on soup pods that fit the K-Cup coffee machines in many offices. The pod has the broth, and there's a separate package you tear open with the dried soup chunks. According to the Philadelphia Inquirer, the idea for instant pod soup came from on high. One day, Campbell's CEO, Denise Morrison, is making coffee with a pod, and she says to herself something along the lines of, "Hey!" They're still working out the kinks, and the price has yet to be set. In New York, I'm David Brancaccio with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
You're the genius.
Pentagon expands Syria plan.
Adding potential targets to its list.
Personal data, the internet, and the NSA.
Breaking encryption is what they were born to do.
Let the launch pad countdown begin.
A new NASA mission to the moon.
Good morning. I'm Steve Kathan. With the CBS World News Roundup, the Pentagon is expanding its potential targets in Syria as many members of the American public expressed doubts about military intervention. A town hall on Syria in Phoenix last night had Senator John McCain on the defensive.
How much is the life of American servicemen worth? To me, it's worth a whole lot more.
Sir, there's no contemplation of putting a single American serviceman or woman in danger.
You can say that now, but when...
I'm telling you there's not.
I know, but...
I'm telling you there's not, sir.
President Obama wants Congress to back his plan for limited military strikes in Syria to punish it for chemical weapons use. This man in Damascus begs for U.S. action.
If you don't help us, who is going to do it? Somebody should do some help for us.
CBS's David Martin at the Pentagon says the military target list is getting larger.
The Pentagon needs to be sure that they can do enough damage to make this strike worthwhile. So they have to keep adding targets so that they have a sufficient target list to accomplish two missions. One is to damage Syria's ability to use chemical weapons again, and two is to discourage the Syrian military from thinking that whatever advantage they get out of using chemical weapons is worth the damage they're going to suffer.
I'm Barry Bagnato in Washington. U.S. officials here are increasingly concerned military action will push groups allied with Syria's government to launch retaliatory attacks, and that delaying it will give them time to effectively plan and execute operations. The Wall Street Journal reports in recent days an order was intercepted from the head of an Iranian Revolutionary Guard force, telling Shiite militia groups in Iraq to prepare to target the U.S. Embassy and other American interests there in the event of a strike on Syria.
This is Pam Coulter in St. Petersburg. President Obama will spend the final day of the G20 summit lobbying fellow leaders on Syria. An aide, Ben Rhodes, says a majority believe the regime was behind a deadly chemical attack. While Russia continues to block any UN action, he warns,
we can't have an endless process at the UN Security Council that doesn't lead to anything.
The U.S. not asking other countries for military assistance, just political and diplomatic support.
And there's late word the U.S. is ordering diplomats to leave Lebanon as Congress debates Syria military action. Syrian opposition groups have condemned the video obtained by the New York Times purporting to show rebels executing 7 captured Syrian soldiers. A statement suggests extremists carried out the killings. Well, the Times, citing an Edward Snowden leak, says the NSA has been unraveling encryption technology Internet users have come to count on as their personal information circulates in cyberspace. CBS's Bob Orr.
Encryption, which scrambles data, is widely used to protect details of banking transactions, things like trade secrets and emails. But the report says the NSA now can decipher or defeat virtually all of those encryption programs. Officials argue the NSA and foreign intelligence partners need that kind of capability to crack encrypted terrorist chats. But at the same time, privacy advocates worry it also means the government could read coded communications of private U.S. citizens.
The government says the economy created 169,000 jobs last month, the unemployment rate at 7.3%, the lowest in almost 5 years. The report could affect the Fed's plan to ease off on stimulus. Economist Gus Fauché.
What we're seeing is good but not great growth. We lost almost 9 million jobs during the recession. We've added back about 7 million of those, but that means we're still down by about 2 million or so from the peak prior to the recession.
I'm Jeff Gilbert in Detroit. Car companies have the help wanted sign out, but they're looking for a new kind of worker.
There is a supply and demand issue for the very best talent, and we're all looking for that.
Ford Human Resources Manager Felicia Field says they're competing with the tech industry as they try to hire 2,000 salaried workers this year. Ford's also in the midst of bringing in 12,000 new line workers, providing opportunity for those like George Bollinger.
What do you think a career making cars is going to be like?
A lot of fun, a lot of hard work, but it'll be worth it.
New hires get second-tier pay. That's about half of what established workers get.
A 71-year-old Montana judge looks to re-sentence a convicted rapist today. Todd Baugh gave a male teacher 30 days for the 2007 rape of a 14-year-old high school student. He later apologized for suggesting the girl had as much control of the relationship as he did. Marion Bradley, president of the Montana National Organization for Women, says the state's highest court will likely have the final say on the sentence.
It will go to the Supreme Court. We know our Attorney General filed an intent to appeal. That process could take 90 days to 9 or 10 months.
The victim committed suicide in 2010 while the case was still pending. America is going back to the moon. CBS's Peter King tells us a spacecraft with no people on board is due to launch later today.
When humans last left the moon more than 40 years ago, scientists believed it was a dead planet. NASA science chief and former astronaut John Grunsfeld says a recent series of lunar missions has shown that theory was dead wrong.
We've discovered that the moon, in a sense, scientifically, is still very much alive. It's still evolving. And, in fact, has a kind of atmosphere, an exosphere.
Which scientists have long wanted to study, lunar gas, lunar dust above the surface. CBS News space consultant Bill Harwood says the Laddie spacecraft will analyze the so-called exosphere for 3 months.
It's a short-duration mission, but they think the science payoff is going to be quite high.
Peter King, CBS News.
A new federal report is out on the nation's birth rate. Here's CBS's Jim Shenevy.
The birth rate has been dropping for years, but that may finally be changing.
The decline that we had seen in the number of births starting in 2007 and going through 2011 appears to have leveled off.
Brady Hamilton of the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the number of babies born last year, nearly 4 million, was just a few hundred less than the year before. Experts think it's because fewer couples are delaying having children because of the economy or other factors.
In Brooklyn, New York, a 19-year-old model helicopter buff was killed yesterday when the mini chopper he was flying by remote control in a park crashed into him. It's whirring 2-foot-long blades hitting his head and neck. A neighbor says Roman Perozic was experienced.
He was good at it, and this is the way he died. Was the thing he loves to do, but it's a shame.
An aeronautics group says it's only the second known death of this kind. Electronic cigarettes, the new alternative to smoking, have been selling big, but health officials are concerned because a growing number of teenagers are now using them.
For middle school students and high school students, their use and experimentation with e-cigarettes had doubled, and we've now reached a point where 10% of high school students have experimented with e-cigarettes.
Dr. Tim McAfee of the Centers for Disease Control says teens can develop an addiction. E-cigarettes do pack nicotine. Rough week for George Zimmerman, acquitted of murder in the Trayvon Martin case. Just days after being pulled over for speeding, Zimmerman's wife has filed for divorce. She's on probation for a year for lying to help get her husband out of jail. The bad taste left behind by baseball star Ryan Braun's doping suspension is affecting restaurants he owns with business partners. One outside Milwaukee is changing its name. Another will close in a few months. That's the World News Roundup, produced by Paul Ferry. I'm Steve Kaif, CBS News.
I started doing pills when I got hurt. They made the pain go away. Well, some of it.
Hey, what's up? Holla at ya, boy. XOXOXO. You getting these texts? Question mark. Where are you? What are you doing? OMG, you are making me mad. You better text me back. I'm waiting outside your house.
Relentless, aggressive texting is like sending an angry robot to deliver your message. When does the robot become dangerous? Let us know at that'snotcool.com.
That'snotcool.com.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Confessions of a Potentially Perfect Parent, brought to you by AdoptUsKids.org.
I don't know how to talk like a parent. Don't make me come back there. You see what I mean? It's pretty awful. Try it again. Don't make me come back there. Now that's pretty good. That one kind of sounded like my dad. Weird.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to put up with you. Call 1-888-200-4005 or visit adoptuskids.org for more information. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and